All right, Nick, let's talk about the Miami Hurricanes. Obviously, National Signing Day is here. There have been a ton of teams that have gotten a ton of players signed today. But I think these two guys we're going to talk about today for the Miami Hurricanes are some of the best of the day. Let's get into the tweets and we'll talk about them on the other side. First up, I think the biggest signing for Miami, potentially the biggest signing of the day, is five-star defensive lineman Armando Blunt. The tweet from Hayes Fawcett says, five-star defensive lineman Armando Blunt tells us he has flipped once again from Florida State back to Miami. Blunt originally committed to Miami. Then he flipped to the Seminoles back in October. Now he is back with the Hurricanes. A long, tumultuous situation here, but he is back where he belongs, ranked as the number 3 defensive lineman in the 2024 class. This guy is going to be an absolute game wrecker at Miami. I think this is a really, really huge pickup for them, but that is not where they stopped. They also added more ammo to the defensive side of the ball in 4-star linebacker Adarius Hayes. Hayes Fawcett says, 4-star linebacker Adarius Hayes tells me he has flipped from Florida to Miami. 6'4", 225-pound linebacker from Largo, Florida, has been committed to the Gators since January. So once again, 2 in-state rivals. Miami goes in, talks to their guys, and the controversy with Florida State, Florida has a down year. They are not looking like the team that they once were. Miami capitalizes on all of that. Says, hey, come to Miami. We're probably I would say one of the most historic teams. All 3 teams have a lot of great history, but I think Miami has a lot of history, a lot of things to offer. A team on the rise. I think they're coming back to prominence. Florida State might be as high as they were going to be. So I think Miami did a great job capitalizing, getting 2 top-tier defensive players back to this team. Nick, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on all of this? But Miami fans, what do you think? Are you pleased with the signing day? Are you pleased with all of the players that Miami has gathered? Let us know in the comment section below. Maybe tell us who your favorite was. But Nick, what do you think about the Hurricanes signings thus far?
So they've been outstanding. So I'm going to give you 4 of the top 5 programs according to 24/7 Sports in terms of the 2024 class recruiting rankings. You have Georgia, you have Alabama, you have Ohio State, and you have Texas. So right there, you have Georgia, 2-time national champion, 1-loss team. Alabama going to the college football playoff. Texas going to college football playoff. Ohio State, 1-loss team going to a big bowl game. The other 5th team to round out the top 5 is the University of Miami. That's how you get it done, right? It is hard for Miami in these situations, to be totally honest, with the season like they had, where to compete with guys like Texas and Alabama and Georgia and hang with them in the recruiting department. And it's a real credit to Cristobal and his recruiting staff for what they've been able to do. And flipping guys is one of those things I think really speaks to the sales job of a head coach and his staff in the recruiting game. It's one thing to get him to commit, but it's another thing to get a guy who was committed to you and then he changes his mind, but to pull him back into the fold or to pull a guy from a different program into your fold. That involves a lot of salesmen. That involves a lot of working with recruits' kids, his coaches, his family, all the key decision makers around these kids. That's a great job of recruiting by Miami. And the only time we really see a lot of flips like this is if a team is actually making a deep college football playoff kind of run, right? Like the teams like Alabama, and like Texas. Those are when you start to see these flips, guys who are playing games in January 4th, January 12th, the college football national title game, because you got kids that want to go play for national titles. Miami obviously is nowhere near that after this past season. So the ability of Cristobal to go out and get these kids to flip to Miami, I think is a great sign for the long-term health of this program, because we say it all the time, right? Short-term problems are solved in the transfer portal. Long-term problems are solved through recruiting. Miami's issues, honestly, are long-term. They've got a lot of talent on the team, but it's going to take them multiple big-time recruiting classes to move into the upper echelons of major college football, where honestly they belong. I think college football is much better when Miami is good. And I think so far, this early signing day results are a great sign that Cristobal is slowly but surely working the Miami Hurricanes in that direction.
Yeah, Nick, and we have to look at, the fact that matters. We say this all the time on this show. To win the recruiting battle, the first place you have to start is your home state. 2 guys from Florida, Largo, Florida, Miami in particular, have to win those. You have to win your own city. That's probably the most microscopic level. You got to win your own city. Then when you're on state, then you start getting recruiting. And then if Miami can get to the point where they're recruiting out west, getting guys from all over the country, that is when we're going to say, all right, Miami is primed. They're coming back. They're able to get guys off the West Coast and get the best off the East Coast. This is a team that can do it all. And I think they're on the right path. Like we said, they started, they flipped, they're getting guys back from their state. I can see the momentum building. I think the season doesn't go exactly the way you want it if you're a Miami fan, but I can see it turning. I can see a lot of good stuff happening. And I think this Miami team next year is going to be the start of something special. And with having these big time players, especially a 5-star D lineman, like we say, A players want to play with A players. There's going to be a lot of good players who want to come to this Miami squad. So look out. I don't think what they have done today is where it is going to stop for this 2024 class.
And you bring up a really great point, and I want to highlight this for Miami fans to understand as well. It's the timing of getting these flips and in getting these recruits and building that A player environment. Because, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the fact that Miami isn't playing one of these other big time bowl games, right? No New Year's Six Bowl, no college football playoff, means that the early signing day was going to be their biggest opportunity. Because the later signing day, a lot of these other big name kids are going to be able to see, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, all those kind of big bowl games, the college football national title, all that kind of stuff. And Miami, of course, is not involved in any of those big bowl games. That would hurt them in the recruiting game. Cristobal and his staff, again, going to give him a lot of credit for recognizing that his window was now, and he really capitalized on it. He brought in a lot of A players into their talent pool, and that will help them, like you alluded to, Mice, recruit other A players later in the process, even though they aren't playing in a big bowl game. Again, credit to Cristobal and his recruiting staff, recognizing the time to make their move was the early signing day window, and they went out and got it done.